I just want them to know, listeners, to understand that divorce is not something that will ever define you. It just is a something that is happening to you, and that you're going to take your lessons and learn from them and have your best next chapter. That's what I really want for my people, is to really get that whether you're working with me or another person, divorce does happen, unwanted, but it doesn't define you.
Welcome to the Divorce Discussions Podcast, where professionals share practical guidance to help you move through divorce with clarity and confidence. Let's get into the discussion. Divorce can feel like stepping into completely unfamiliar territory, and you might find yourself asking questions like, where do I even begin? How do I protect myself, especially emotionally? And how do I move forward when everything about the future suddenly feels uncertain? For many people, especially those navigating high conflict situations or what's known as a gray divorce, the emotional weight of these decisions can feel overwhelming. That is where the right kind of support can make all the difference. I'm Angie Weber, the director of the Divorce Support Collective, and today I am joined by one of our amazing DSC members and certified divorce coach, Christin Becker. Christin is passionate about helping women navigate the emotional and strategic challenges of divorce. She specializes in supporting women facing high conflict and gray divorce, guiding them through uncertainty with clarity, confidence, and practical tools. Christin works as a strategic partner to her clients, helping them manage the emotional toll while making empowered decisions about their future. Her mission is to ensure women don't walk through divorce alone, but instead emerge stronger, more confident, and ready to build the next chapter of their lives. And while we may not be able to rebuild the listener's next chapter completely today, Christin, I think that you're going to be able to give them some amazing stepping stones. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I
I
love what
am
you
as
do
well.
with the Divorce Support Collective too. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And you're a huge component of that. So, of course, everyone at the end here, I'm going to tell you go look at Kristin's profile, go check her out, do all the things to get connected with her. But you're going to see why as we continue throughout this conversation. So, there are so many different parts that I could start on with you, Christin. Even from the first time I met you with the work that you do, I loved how you said that divorce really is 80% emotional. And I know you're
Yes.
going to get into that. And I think it is so true. And I always tell people as well, you need to have these different pieces of your support when you're going through divorce, because if you're utilizing a lawyer as your therapist and your emotional support, you're going to be paying a really high bill in that case.
Right,
And there,
right.
there are different people out there who have an expertise in helping you gauge these emotional support. So really quickly, why don't you just share why you are so passionate about the work that you do?
I would love to. First off, I am a certified divorce coach and have been for the last few years. And I never expected to be an expert in divorce. I believe in marriage 100%. But guess what? Divorce happens. And anyone I work with, I think divorce is unwanted, whether you're the one who walks away or you're the one who it happened to. It's unwanted because we don't get married to plan our divorce. We just don't. So I'm passionate about it because we had 4 children in our marriage, and I was married 27 years. And this was a curveball I wasn't planning on, even though I was the one who walked away. And those kids are always watching. So my passion and what I do is coming from that viewpoint of how are you going to show up in this process, this curveball of life, and get through it with your head held high, your family as much intact as possible, being the best foundational support for those kids in something that's hard and is going to be turbulent for a little bit. Change is turbulent. So if I can help women navigate this by giving them more information about the process, they can go into it with more confidence, because I think fear is all of the unknown. And by giving them knowledge in the process, I think is really why I want to do what I do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And one of the reasons I wanted to start out with that is because, divorce can feel so uncertain, and it can feel like, am I ever going to survive this? Am I going to make it through on the other side? And I wanted to give a glimpse to our listeners. It doesn't mean that they are going to go out and be a divorce coach as well, or a mediator, or, a financial expert in this field. However, I think it's really important to notice that this isn't something that you planned, but you found a purpose and a passion through your life journey. And that just
Mm.
so happened to include divorce. And so you have found such a beautiful, amazing life after the divorce as well. And I just wanted you to share that with people, so that they can have some hope of like, it feels really difficult right now, but there's some really great things waiting for you in your next chapter.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we go about, like I said, I didn't go about planning to be a divorce coach at all. When I was going through my divorce, my attorney actually said to me, he goes, Kristen, I don't know what you're doing, but you're so calm. And whenever there's a delay or your husband's not giving discovery or any of these things, you're just like, okay, you just kind of roll with it. So we could use your support in our office. And so a friend of mine said, what if you could get certified in that? And that's when I found the certification. I felt like that matters. But honestly, what it is, I wasn't allowed in my marriage to have friendships other than what we were doing as our family. It was a controlling, unhealthy marriage. And so when I was allowed to be myself and kind of open up with others, and I could see that I was helping others along the way, now I actually have education in it too. Like there's a purpose. And I love what you said. Turning, my son actually said that to me. Mom, I'm really proud of you. You're taking your pain and you're turning it into a purpose of serving others that need your guidance.
Yeah.
And I didn't plan on it, but sometimes we don't know why we have to go through what we go through. But I'm not afraid to share my story. And when I work with people, it's not about my story, but it helps them know that I get it.
Yeah.
But I also have the education to help them through it. So when I do work with people, after we come to an agreement that that's what we're going to do, then it's about them sharing where they're at. And then I strategize with them about how we can help them through it.
Yeah.
But initially, I do on the consult call share a little bit more about my journey just so they can get that I was 27 years married, full-time stay-at-home mom. I get it. I was there. I lost myself in the process, but now it's fun to be able to come out the other side and shine and thrive and watch my kids thriving, and all of us are doing great. So I
Yeah.
want that for my people I work with.
Absolutely. Now, I want to ask a few clarifying questions before we get into kind of the more in-depth ones that I'm sure
Okay.
our listeners are going to absolutely love. The first thing is, I know that you speak a lot about helping women who are going through high conflict, but do you also work with men?
I do work with men. I work with women because that is my story. So they tend to gravitate towards me. But men are sometimes not the stereotype one in the relationship where they're the one who is looking for support in co-parenting or how do I communicate or was the least toxic partner in the relationship.
Mm,
So I've worked on changing my language on my website recently just so men can see that, yeah, actually, I do work with you as well.
yeah.
It just tends to be my specialty as women because it resonates with them, and that's my story. So
Absolutely. Well, I just want to clarify that, just for those listeners who are men that are tuning in, Kristen can help you. And if you're not a right fit, then maybe she can lead you to someone else. That's a
absolutely.
huge component at the Divorce Support Collective. We like to have a variety of different professionals so we can find the right fit for someone, especially again, because it's so emotional going through the divorce. All right, next
Absolutely.
question, because I know that this has been talked about and I know it's going to continue to be sprinkled about in episodes, because it is becoming a more common term. But can you clarify for our listeners what a gray divorce is?
Yes, gray divorce is long-term marriage. It's finding an ending. So I do fall in that category because of 27 years, and I was over 50 when I left. But it's typically that trend of 25, 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 35-year-old marriages. One of my client was married 48 years.
Mm,
Nobody gets into this space of like, this is what we're going to have happen, but it's like, what can we do now that this is? And do we have this quote unquote life sentence of misery,
mm,
or can we thrive and shine again?
yeah,
So it's sad trend, but I think social media brings that about a little bit because they're seeing that they're not alone and there's options
sure.
because you can share and see stories online and different things like that. But it is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's becoming a lot more popular as well. So,
Yeah.
thank you for clarifying that. Because again, I
Yeah.
know that we've already touched on it in previous episodes. I know it's going to keep
Yeah.
coming up again, and I want to make sure for our listeners who are tuning into all the episodes that they understand what exactly that means if they hear it in others. So, Kristen, let's talk a little bit. Some people might be a little confused. Like you're a divorce coach, so what exactly do you do for clients, and how is this different than just going and getting a therapist?
Oh, that's a good question. You mentioned it at the beginning that divorce is 80% professional, and I say that often. There's an article to refer to, but I use a triangle of divorce is 80% emotional, 10% legal, 10% financial. And if you're not dealing with that 80% piece, you're going to make some poor, emotionally charged legal and financial decisions. So a therapist deals with your past, your history, your trauma, maybe why we made certain decisions. Me as a coach, I'm specifically trained in divorce. My education is from clarity. Is this what I want to do? Co-parenting, how to pick your professionals, how to work with other professionals, the code of ethics, alternative dispute resolution, communication, everything about divorce, and all the way to thriving again. And so specifically, I help my clients where they are right now and where do they want to be, and what are the steps I can help them with to get there.
Yeah.
I'm part of groups like the Divorce Support Collective, divorce transition professionals. I'm part of those groups because we're all divorce professionals coming together and talking about what resources are available to our clients.
Yeah.
I stay in my lane, I'm the emotional piece. But when somebody dumps with me, their emotional vomit, I often say, it's a much cheaper rate than at 450, 550, $600 an hour with an attorney.
Yeah.
So I can help them bullet point what they dumped on me and say, that's a great question. Let's have these be your legal questions. Those are your financial questions. And then I have them kind of refer out and help guide them.
Yeah.
So that's really what I do is strategize, help hold them accountable. You said you were going to get your bank statements. I know that's overwhelming. That's not something you did. Were you able to get that? Kind of thing. So helping them take the baby steps in the process.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the strategic part of it. Of I'm going to hold you accountable, because again, I think when people start in the divorce, they're again are like, I don't even know where to go right now. I don't know who to turn to, and yeah, I want to be able to emotionally vomit on someone, but I know maybe my lawyer is making it very clear that I don't want to hear this, or I'm
Right.
running out of time and having to pay this big bill, and then they might think, well, okay, I can just call up a friend though, and
Right.
they can be my quote unquote coach throughout this divorce process because they either went through a divorce or maybe they had a friend or a family member who went through a divorce. But I think one of those pieces that you really add to it that I just really want to drive home is that yes, you are there for the emotional support and you're also there for the strategic accountability to make sure they're still moving forward.
That, and I'm also unbiased because you can talk to your mom, your friends, or whatever. And if you start dumping and venting about what's going on, they're going to just help you stay riled up
Yeah.
because, oh, yeah, he's an asshole, whatever, excuse my French. But I'm just saying that kind of stuff happens. And if you're dumping that on me, then I'm going to say, okay, what part of that can control?
Yeah.
You just spend 5 minutes of venting about how he was, how the kids were at his house.
Yeah.
What part of that can you control? And they're sitting there going, oh, well, I can't. I said, okay, so how was the week when you had the kids? What did you guys do? We start focusing on what they did. And I'm going to, how are you feeling now? And then happiness and controlled and settled. And they have that realization that, oh, I can't spend my energy on what's happening at dad's house
Yeah.
because it's just getting me tired. It's getting me angry. It's getting me. And that's what I do is like you can vent to your mom and mom, oh yeah, but or a friend, but I really help them have tools I'm also available to my clients in between sessions. When someone commits to working with me, it's not let's meet weekly for 6 weeks or anything like that. It's as they need me because divorce is fluid, but they have access to me between sessions via text and email.
Mm,
Sometimes they'll get a text from their spouse and they're like, I just got this. How do I respond?
yeah,
And if I can take the time to look at that and say, well, are the kids with you right now? And then if they are, half the time they don't even have to respond because they know the kids are safe. They're with them already.
yeah,
And if it's just emotionally charged text message, they don't, no response is a response.
yes,
So, or
yes,
you can even just say received, simple, you know. So teaching strategies and techniques and being available accountability wise, but strategy wise, and all the pieces.
yeah. Well, I
So,
want to get into some kind of those very tangible tips that you just kind of mentioned too, like a no response is a response, or just simply saying received. But before we get into maybe some of those strategies that would be helpful for our listeners, one thing that I know you talk about a lot is really focusing on that control piece, controlling what we can and letting go of what we can't. So, can you
mhm.
speak a little bit more onto that? Because I think for a lot of people going through divorce, especially if they're the ones who feel like they've been managing everything the whole relationship, it's hard to give up that control. And the person who feels like they have had someone as their cruise director the whole time may
Right,
be like a little resentful and push back even more of like, hey, I get to choose how I do stuff now, which again can
right.
just snowball, right? And add in so much more emotion.
Well, I think I even work with my clients about drawing circles and putting in the first smaller circle about what's within your control, the relationship with your children, how you show up with your kids, how you communicate with your kids, what kind of boundaries you're going to have with your children,
Yeah.
your self-talk with yourself, your things that you're doing to help yourself get through this hard thing. For
Yeah.
example, maybe starting a kickboxing class or going for a run or starting to work out, doing something that serves you, meditating, whatever that might be. But those are within your control. And then drawing a bigger circle on the outside and put the things in there that are not within your control, such as how your husband or spouse, co-parent is going to react or respond, what other people think of you. That's huge because a lot of times we go through this going, I didn't want to be a divorcee. It doesn't matter. This is your truth, your reality. And it doesn't matter what people think. All those other pieces. So I really focus when those things come up. Yes, I'm human. Yes, I've had my moments where I've received a text and I let it get a hold of me. So get reminded sometimes of like, why are you letting him control you or let you get so angry? He doesn't even live in your house anymore. Somebody said that to me. I'm like, wait, that's my line. But we're human. We're
Yeah.
human. So when we give our energy and have that realization that we're giving our energy to something that, you know what, he doesn't deserve that energy anymore. It helps you take your control back. Like, don't let him have that power over you. So I think that right there, that realization, when I'm working with clients is like, wait, you're right. He doesn't deserve this. And no, like I said, I wished I could have had my happily ever after. I really wanted that. But unfortunately, in my situation, he was incapable of giving me that. And now that I've walked out on the other side, the majority of my clients who are teetering over this indecision, I just met with a client this morning who says, for 5 years, I've been trying to do this. I'm trying to wait for the right time with my kids, but at what cost?
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
And I can never tell you when the right time is. It has to be your decision. But that teetering and maybe looking at your 13-year-old and saying, is this the example of a healthy relationship that I want to model for my kids?
Yeah.
Or do I want them to know that it's worth it to step out and find myself again? So
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for people walking out, especially if there's no domestic violence or any of that other stuff. But at what cost? Are
Mhm.
you being your best version of yourself?
Yeah.
And are you modeling that for your kids? So
Yeah.
I went on a different tangent,
That's
but
okay.
it's
I
kind
think
of
it's all really important and things for people to consider too, because at the very beginning you said, I'm pro marriage. I'm not advocating that everyone should go out and get a divorce. I mean,
right.
you're not just trying to fill up your pipeline because you work with people going through divorce.
No, I'm not.
You know, and I think you bring up that really key point of a lot of people will say, and of course, we understand that not everyone going through a divorce has children. However, a majority do. And it's important to really debunk the myth of, well, I'm just going to stay together for the kids because that's what I think. I think the divorce would, traumatize them and there'd be so much work to do afterwards. But again, it's what are you modeling? Because you mentioned too,
Right,
kids are watching us all the time. I always say that
right.
they're like sponges and we don't need a mirror, we need a child. And yeah, they're
I love that.
constantly watching what we're doing and picking up on
Hmm.
stuff, and the importance of showing them a healthy, loving relationship
Right.
really should be a very high priority, whether you have sons or daughters or both. Like, that needs to be on the
100%.
forefront. I also loved how, you said even you have these tools, right? Like, you have your own divorce recovery coaching toolbox, yet
Right.
you still can get triggered sometime. And I think that's so important for people to remember, because again, what I tell parents when I work with them is I say there's no such thing as a perfect parent, and your kids don't actually want a perfect parent, they just
Right.
want you. Like, we're all human, we're gonna stumble, we're
Right.
gonna mess up. And the same
Right.
goes with divorce. It's not, you're gonna be an expert at it. It's like you said, fluid, and we have to be adaptable and flexible and just kind of
Right.
give ourselves grace and keep moving forward. Okay, we talked about quite a bit already, but I want to kind of jump into what are some of the biggest challenges that you see with your clients going through divorce?
I think learning when their fears is the biggest thing.
Mm,
Just big fears about what is the process. They think the first step, so many people think, is to hire an attorney and they're just going to take care of it for you.
mm,
I've just put a $5,000 retainer down with my attorney, so I should be okay. Well, that attorney works for you. And if you don't tell them what it is you're needing or wanting and co-parenting and all that, um, they're going to kind of sit by the sidelines. And so I remind my clients that you paid them a retainer. They work for you. So
yes.
the fear is so big, and sitting back and waiting for things to happen. I really work with my clients a lot about trying alternative dispute resolution options such as mediation. I'm not saying not to have an attorney as your guidepost to review whatever you're going over in mediation, or somebody else, maybe a financial expert who can review it. There's so many professionals that I've met through my different groups that I'm a member of.
Yeah.
For example, I have a client who had a big house, Santa Barbara client, um, lots of money involved in different things. She never hired an attorney. She went directly through mediation, but she was worried about signing that agreement because she said she felt bullied in her relationship the entire
Mm,
marriage. So how does she know that this is in her best interest? So I aligned her with a financial expert to review the agreement to see if it was in her best interest based on what was written. And then she could sign the agreement with confidence.
yeah.
And she didn't have to hire the attorney. And they were able to go through mediation at a much cheaper rate. So my goal with my clients is to help them have resources that they can go to and try to save money. Litigation, I was part of litigation. My divorce took almost 5 years. Um, we settled a whole bunch of our divorce stuff at the beginning through mediation and collaboration. And all of those pieces that we agreed upon, we signed and had finished.
Yeah.
But the one piece that kept lingering kept was a litigation piece that we just kept getting postponed because we didn't have custody and we didn't have domestic violence. So every time our case came up, it was postponed 6 months, postponed 6 months, because we weren't priority case.
Mm,
So I don't want people to have to wait for it to be final to start their life,
yeah.
because I didn't wait to start my life. I am thriving in the process of it, made lots of mistakes along the way. But that fear piece of what options are available, I wish I knew what options were available when I was starting my process. but I do now. And I want those mistakes that I made. I want to share. If you have a business together, you need a business valuations analyst to
Yes.
analyze that business because it's valued differently in a divorce than it is if you're selling it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, and I made mistakes where that was concerned, but that's okay because I have my peace now. I have my boundaries, and there's zero amount of financial money that you can put on the value that I ended up giving up accidentally
Yes.
to knowing that I had my peace. And so I do talk to my clients about at what cost are you still fighting
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing. Or if they're getting ready for mediation, we brainstorm their non-negotiables and their negotiables so that they can come to the table ready to come to resolution, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so you hit on a lot of points there. Like
I
the
did,
fear,
sorry.
no, that's okay. That's okay. I think a lot of our listeners are resonating with this. And it's not like when you go through a divorce, it's like, all right, here's the timeline of here's the first month, and these are all the questions that are going to come up. And now you're in month two, and now this is what you're going to feel like. It's going to be
Right.
different for everyone, and it might feel
Yes.
like a whole snowball of emotions and questions come at
Mhm.
once. And then other times you kind of feel like you're just waiting for something to happen. And so,
Right.
again, we're talking about, the fears, like preparing for mediation, knowing what your options are, because again, where do I start? And throughout this podcast, you listeners are going to be able to learn from people who do mediation as well, of like, what does that mean? What does it look like? Is this the right
Right.
option for us? And at the Divorce Support Collective, one of our main core values is empowering education. And that's exactly why we're doing this podcast, is because we want to be able to provide people with different options and education and awareness of, hey, this isn't just the horror story that you heard from down the street of it took,
Right.
5 years to get divorced and we left with nothing and everyone
Right.
was depleted at the end. We want to make sure people understand that through collaboration, through support, through different professionals, and really gathering that A team behind you, there are different possibilities out here,
Right.
as you navigate through this. um the other thing that I kind of wanted to hit on that you touched on a little bit is just that when you're going through divorce and there's just so many of the what ifs. And again, I love all the tips that you gave, like let's talk before mediation, let's figure out what your next step is. But I really love the point that you made of really kind of that you were thriving through your divorce. So I think, and that kind of goes along with what you mentioned before of, what are people going to think of me? What are people going to think that I'm getting divorced in the first place? And then they might have this fear of, or this thought like, oh, I can't actually restart my life until everyone knows that it's finalized.
Right. No.
Because what if I do restart my life and then people think that I just don't care, or they have this misconception to me. So I would love for you to speak a little bit on kind of the strategies and things people can do while they're going through this journey to still kind of rebuild their life and thrive through
Yeah.
it.
Well, especially if you're, a lot of my clients are stay-at-home moms because that was my story, and things like that. So I will talk on that because I think it's really important. When I got into my own space and learned how to have boundaries, a lot of us don't know how to do that.
Mm,
So having boundaries is healthy, even for your children to learn how to have boundaries with each other and with their parents and with their friends. So learning how to have boundaries and maintaining those because it's safe and healthy was
mm,
really important. The kids would go to their dads. I was a stay-at-home mom. Dinner time was a very busy time for me. And when they were at their dads, that was hard for me. It was hard for me. And it's not what I signed up for to be a full-time mom. And so I started, not right away. Sometimes I started with Netflix and a bottle of wine, but that doesn't serve you very well. So I started door dashing during those dinner hours when my kids were at their dads. And initially I was a little embarrassed by it because I would bump into friends or whatever. And then I would say, yeah, hey, the kids are at dad's. I'm just out trying to be productive, or things like that. And it was I made like 300 to 500 bucks 4 or 5 nights a week, not total, each night, but total for the week, which was enough to make a car payment,
yeah.
and things like that. And I was feeling productive instead of doing the opposite. So those kind of things. And it also helps you to show in your case that you're not sitting back at home, woe is me. Nobody is going to look at you and say, oh, why aren't you in bed? Or, feel like if you're having a bad day, it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to be human. But it's ultimately, I ask my clients to participate actively in their journey.
Yeah.
And when you are participating and taking steps to improve, that's going to help you be your best self. And I remember 4 years after I left and I went home to Minnesota to visit my family, my mom said to me, she goes, we finally have our daughter back.
Mm,
Because in my marriage, I always kept dying to self in
mm,
order to keep the calm,
yeah.
keep the peace, and buffer my kids and all the different things. And I lost kind of who I was in that process. But to be able to come out the other side and DoorDash, start working. My daughters were juniors and asked if they could go to Hawaii for their senior trip. And I'm like, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
A friend of mine works at the airport. I reached out to her. I got a job part-time at the airport. So now my kids can do standby flights. And guess what? They went to Maui on their senior trip. And those are things that I never thought was in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But those are the kinds of things that bring you confidence, trying new things, try a dance class, try the things that you said you wanted to do, pick up golf and join a women's group or things like that that just help you get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Try new things. You don't have to wait. And that's what I said the kids are part of the DoorDash story. I'll be honest. My kiddo asked me for money all the time. And I was like, hey, if I can DoorDash, you can DoorDash. So, and he's like, oh, okay. So that was part of it as well, because I was like, no, I'm not here just to give you money. You have to go make a couple bucks too, and you
Yeah.
can. So that modeling of
Yeah.
like, it's okay. We can
Absolutely.
all do this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I love the creative solutions, right? Or like
Right.
in even if it's not a financial
Right.
need, again, it's getting yourself out there and getting out of your comfort zone a little bit so that you
Right.
don't feel like you're constantly just in the emotions all the time. It's
Yes.
great to feel your emotions. You have to do that. You have to ride the wave, but you don't want to be controlled by them.
100%.
So, finding those different things to just try it, see if you like,
Right.
dancing or golf or whatever it is,
Yes.
are great options. And sometimes we need that, right? Like we need that from an outside perspective. It's kind of like when our children don't want to listen to us because we're their parents, but then they'll hear the
Right.
idea from like a friend of ours or like
Right.
another adult, and they're like, oh my gosh, this person's brilliant. And you're like, but I just was saying that 5 times and
Right.
you didn't think it was so great. So hearing it from an outside perspective that's not your friend or your mom or your sister or whoever it is, can be
Right.
really helpful too. I know we kind of have to wrap this up, and there's a few more things that I want to touch on, and I wish that we could have probably just started and talked about boundaries this whole time, because that also goes
Right.
into the what we can control and what we can't control.
Right.
But I would love for you just to hit on like one tip or suggestion for listeners right now about the importance of putting boundaries up as you're going through this process.
I think it's really important to remember one of the techniques I use with my clients, I'm using listeners, is a way to communicate when you're communicating with your co-parent. It's important to look at it from a lens as if it were going to be viewed by your attorney or a judge. So keeping those messages factual
Yeah.
and small, like short. It just needs to be. So one of the things is CIC, concise, informative, and civil.
Mm,
So when I say it, you don't have to say, and thank you so much. I appreciate you. Any of that, just like this is appreciated.
yeah.
Like, so things like that. So if I get this long verbose message from my co-parent and it has all this other stuff about, and you never listened, and you never did, pick out the pieces that are pertinent. And if there wasn't anything that was, you like received
Yeah.
and simple, because it's protecting your heart. It's protecting you. I don't need to listen to this. Or for example, we're still, any kind of communication when there's a doctor's appointment. Just want you to know there's a doctor's appointment on Tuesday at 2 p.m. I plan on taking her, but if you want to go, simple. It doesn't have to be the big thing. So I think it's just those boundaries of communication, thinking about your divorce as a business of
Yes.
divorce and taking out the emotion as much as possible. You are unwinding a partnership.
Yeah.
And if you can think about it in the business strategic, try to keep that high road up. Will you get triggered? Absolutely.
Yes.
Don't respond right away.
Yeah.
Just even write out the response and say, this is what I want to say and send it to me.
Yes.
And then I can go, okay, I'll rewrite it in a filtered way
Yeah.
and send it back. And it says the same thing, but it took out all the emotion.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that part because I think that is such an amazing tip and reminder for people. And I'm going to assume that some listeners instantly went to, well, that sounds great, but I just can't. Or, I've tried to do that before and I end up writing that paragraph and hitting send because I spiral and it gets so emotional. And same thing happens when I work with parents and co-parents when we talk about the pause, right? In parenting, when they're like, wow, a pause sounds really nice, but I don't know how to do it. I can't do that. I'm just go from 0 to 60. And just like you're kind of saying too, like we can put these practices into play and we can start little by little. And at first,
Right.
you might still be very triggered by that text if your ex sends you this big long thing. No one is saying all of a sudden you're going to flip a switch and never be triggered by
Yep.
their big rant again. And that's why you have someone like Kristen, so that you can go
Right.
and say, this is what I just got. This is what I wanted to send. What should I send instead? Or
Right.
instead, I said received, but I really do need to share this with someone or vent it to
Right.
someone who will give me, again,
Right.
that outside perspective, who will not add into the spiraling, is what I
Well, that's
want.
what you just said. There's so many times I'll get a message from a client and I said, that's a mic drop send. That's very good, but I'm glad you didn't send that.
Yes. Yes.
Because it's like it's saying everything, but that's just going to escalate and elevate. And then instead of ending the conversation, it's going to make it be banter back and forth.
Yes.
And by just communicating on what is pertinent on the kids' doctor's appointment or the clothes that didn't get sent over with their soccer cleats or whatever, those specifics. If you just talk about the specifics and the facts. My kids are all over 20 now. They're all adults, and my ex still wants to co-parent. I'm like, I can't make them talk to you. I'm not gonna, that's between them and their dad.
Yeah.
And I want them to have a good relationship with their dad. I encourage them to communicate, but I encourage them to figure out their boundaries on their own with him.
Yep.
And that's important
Yep.
because that's another mistake I did make early on, making silly, not, I wouldn't alienate them against him, but I would say, oh, when they would come home, I would like, oh, was the shower clean? That
Mm,
doesn't matter.
yeah.
That doesn't matter. What matters is that they're home now.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do this week?
Yeah.
What kind of recipes should we work on this week? What should we do this week? I'm looking forward to having you.
Yeah.
So focusing forward, focusing on your relationship with them and understanding, like you said, parents aren't perfect. They just need a parent.
Yeah.
Um, having making mistakes is okay, but doing your best and trying to get better.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah.
I do want to share, and I don't know if we'll get to it, but I'm guessing we will. Um, we talked at the beginning about how knowledge is helps take off the fear.
Yeah.
And I've partnered with Second Saturday, and I know you were probably going to ask me. I absolutely know you were.
That was my
Um,
next question. So keep going.
Yay. It's okay. But I wanted Second Saturday is a platform that's been around for going on 40 years. And it was created by wife.org, Women in Financial something. I meant to have that one printed out and I didn't have that one. But together, the mission of Second Saturday, together we're changing what it means to divorce in America. Second Saturday is here to empower people to make the most educated choices surrounding divorce, whether they are contemplating or going through the process. We are here to create a world where families can thrive with or without divorce. That's the mission of Second Saturday. I align with that, and I was like, I want to be a part of this. So, what I'm doing is hosting free workshops every month. And it's not just on Saturday anymore, quote unquote. Mine is the second Monday of the month at 5 p.m., a virtual workshop. There are some in your communities, probably in person, but I think it takes a lot of courage to commit to a workshop when you're considering this process. So I felt virtual was the way I wanted to go because it allows you to be in the comfort of your home, your car, or wherever you're at. 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, second Monday of every month is when I do. And we have three professionals. It's you're going to hear from legal, either a mediator or an attorney every month, a financial expert, typically a certified divorce financial analyst, CDFA, and then the emotional person, me. I'll be the common person every month, but I will trade out my professionals. But it's informative. It's a couple hours. It's usually lasts around 2 hours. We do take questions, but understanding that we can't dive deep into your specific circumstances, but we can help give starting points on it. I just started them in January, so April will be my fourth one, and it's been very well received.
Awesome.
And I love it. And I love empowering women with knowledge.
Yeah.
Here's your options, because we don't, like I said, from the get-go, we don't get married to plan for this. So when it happens, it's like your emotions are just spinning.
Yeah.
So this helps them kind of get some clarity of what the process might look like.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you, yes, for sharing, because that is the thing that I wanted to get into before we ended, is that you have other opportunities for people to learn. Of course, at the Divorce Support Collective, we have our amazing members that you can go view under our member profile directory. And, you know, we try put on events a couple times a year for people navigating divorce. And of course, we have this podcast. So it's an easy, accessible way for people to get information, because you're right, like going through this process, especially if you're at the beginning, feels very uncertain. It can be hard to walk into rooms, you know, physically. And so we wanted to be able to meet people where they were at. And I know your second Saturday does that as well. So they can find that more information from you, which of course, listeners, you're going to be able to find contact information from Christin in the show notes. And you're going to be able to find her on our, again, divorcesupportcollective.com website under the member directory. But thank you so much today, Christin, just sharing your experience and really meeting people where they're at, knowing that you hold space for them, for what they're going through, and knowing that it's not going to be this perfect butterflies and rainbows type of journey. There's going to be ups and downs, and getting the right support is really the key to all of it. So I highly suggest you reach out to Christin if you are looking for that emotional support and you don't already have a divorce coach. Is there any last thing that you'd like to leave the listeners with, Christin, before we wrap up here?
I just want them to know, listeners, to understand that divorce is not something that will ever define you. It just is something that is happening to you, and that you're going to take your lessons and learn from them and have your best next chapter. That's what I really want for my people, is to really get that whether you're working with me or another person, divorce does happen, unwanted, but it doesn't define you. And you will get through it. People get through divorce all the time. It's turbulent, but it does get smooth.
Yeah.
And the peace is real.
And who knows, maybe at the end of it, they will find their next purpose and passion
Right.
like you did as well, whether
Right.
that's being a divorce coach or maybe it's a dance instructor. We don't know.
Right.
It's
Who
to be
knows?
continued. But listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of Divorce Discussions. Again, go to the show notes, get connected with Christin, go check out her and our other fabulous members on the divorcesupportcollective.com. And we will see you next time on the next discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Divorce Discussions podcast. If this was helpful, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next conversation. Visit the divorcesupportcollective.com to explore resources and connect with our professionals. Until the next discussion, remember, you don't have to navigate this alone.